Alright, last top 10 we did on the channel was the top 10 best moves that used to suck. Raise your hand if you're surprised about this one. Gotta attach a caveat here, Ultimate probably has one of the lowest ratios of purely bad moves. It's obvious that a design goal was to diversify characters' kits, and I'd say they largely succeeded, so a lot of the moves that appear on this list aren't necessarily going to be bad per se, but certainly a long way down from their glory days. The bigger factor that I'm looking at is the gap between how it performs in Ultimate compared to how it performed at its peak, although I am also interested in how good it ended up in Ultimate in general. The rule of thumb is that worse moves in Ultimate would be better candidates for this list. Alright, let's do it. So as you can see on screen, this list is not ordered, but I am still probably starting off with the least egregious example overall. Ganondorf's Wizard's Foot. A big part of the reason I say that is because I think Wizard's Foot is actually in a better spot in Ultimate than it's been in a very long time. It's got a much more reliable sweet spot, so it actually kills reliably, and also it doesn't have anywhere near as much ending lag as it's had in the last couple of entries. With that said, the reason it appears on this list is because in Melee, it actually gave him his double jump back, and Ganondorf is one of the characters who really needs help with recovery. As Ultimate's progressed, I'd honestly say that edgeguarding is headed in the opposite direction I initially expected. It seems like more and more players are kind of deciding that it's just not worth the risk and they'd prefer to ledge trap instead against most matchups. But Ganondorf is one of the extreme exceptions. He's one of few characters where a bad recovery is legitimately really crippling weakness and would benefit so much from this additional boost. And what's more, it's frustrating because the developers seemed to realize this, and one of his custom down B variants in Smash 4 actually sent him at a way more horizontal angle. It gave him a massive boost to his recovery and made him a way more viable character overall, so if we're willing to count that, that's two variants of down B that have just been so much better than his current iteration, even with its improvements. The fact they didn't bring over essentially any custom move designs is honestly pretty disappointing, but that's a topic for another day, and Ganondorf would definitely be one of the biggest beneficiaries, and even not counting that, I think he'd trade off his Ultimate variant for his Melee variant in a heartbeat. Okay, another fan favorite character here. Kirby's down air. So obviously a lot of people love this move. Kirby's a beginner-friendly character, and this is a beginner-friendly spike because of how long it lasts for. It's a great introductory tool, but in terms of actual competitive viability, it's just kind of something that players have to use because they don't have anything better to work with. It's really slow to start up and not very strong, and in Ultimate in particular, it's quite frustrating that it doesn't have low enough landing leg to be able to get consistent combos off of it if you drag opponents down to the ground. You can get some stuff in some scenarios, but the timing is very strict. However, there is one game where this move performs wildly differently, and that's Smash 64. Here, this move is a frame 4 startup, and every single individual hit is a powerful spike. And because Smash 64 gives you the ability to Z-cancel all of your ending lag, the combo potential from this move is just ridiculous. Now, Smash 64 was the very first Smash game and is kind of notoriously broken in a fun way, so I've kind of resisted the urge to pull too many moves from there. Even just within Kirby's own kit though, like his up tilt for example was one of the best moves in Smash history, although in Ultimate it's still quite a good up tilt, it's just not insanely broken. Whereas his down air went from insanely broken as well to just kind of meh. I love this move, I want it to be better, but as is, it's not particularly impressive. Okay, a little more contemporary for this next one. Cloud's neutral air. If you never played Smash 4, you may be wondering what I'm talking about here. Cloud's neutral air seems, you know, fine. It's a sword aerial, it covers his entire body, it's got a decent disjoint on it, gives him a little bit of combo potential, a little bit of kill potential off stage, stuff like that. Not a terrible move, no. However, if we take a look at Smash 4's hitbox, it looked like this. Every time I need to go back and rewatch Smash 4 footage for a video, I'm always surprised all over again about how just insanely huge this move was and how he was allowed to get away with it. Now, in Ultimate, I honestly feel like they maybe went a little bit too far. He is a big sword character, his aerials are allowed to be big, and their solution was to just kind of have him really awkwardly scrunch his elbow in, which not only was overcompensation in terms of power, but also just looks kind of awkward in the animation. But regardless, they did it, and honestly, with how many ridiculous nerfs Cloud got, it's kind of crazy that he's still as strong a character as he is. And there were some other really significant nerfs. For example, his limit moves, they got a timer placed on them, so after 15 seconds of not using them, they expire. His up air isn't a very good falling tool anymore, which used to be a staple element of Cloud's game plan. If you look at all of those, though, they still have plenty of roles to play in Cloud's kit, whereas his neutral air, basically the only thing it really had going for it was how massive it was in Smash 4. It gave and gives some combos and some kill potential, but by far its most important roles were in neutral and in edge guarding, because because, again, it was just huge. So take that main strength away, and I'd say this move is a little more stranded than the rest of the moves I mentioned. Used to easily be one of the best neutral airs and arguably even one of the best aerials in the game, and now even though it is a sword aerial, which still tend to be some of the best aerials, it's okay. No Smash 4 nostalgia needed for this one though. Wario's forward smash. In Ultimate and Smash 4, this move is just kind of the pinnacle of mediocrity. It's a powerful, slow punch. I guess that's more or less in line with what you'd expect a heavyweight's forward smash to look like, but when you've got stuff like forward tilt or down tilt into dash attack or just raw dash attack in general, waft confirms, back air, there's really not much reason to use this, and it's exceptionally rare to see Wario mains throw it out. Quite the downgrade from Brawl, where this move was still very powerful and had much better frame data, and on top of that, it had armor. Kind of a prototype Little Mac forward smash. Yeah, night and day difference, and it was pretty disappointing to see it go in Smash 4 and be replaced with just kind of a generic punch, especially because it was referencing one of Wario's most iconic abilities, which just got completely scrapped from his kit in Smash until Ultimate, where it was reintroduced in his dash attack. This is a move that Sakurai has actually directly commented on. He said the reason was to make him stronger, which it didn't? I don't know what he's talking about. Yeah, glad the shoulder bash was reintroduced in some form in Ultimate, but quite disappointing that Wario mains are still stuck with this. Although considering how good the character is in Ultimate, I'm not saying he needs a good forward smash on top of that. Going from somewhat niche to true icon status here, Fox's Blaster. In Smash 64, Fox had what is essentially Falco's Blaster. It causes hit stun. In Melee, it obviously lost that hit stun property. It was given to Falco instead, but it was still a very mobile, nimble, non-committal tool that could rack up a ton of damage over a match. There's kind of a quote-unquote rule in Melee where JVs, a nickname for taking your opponent's stocks without taking any damage yourself, don't include laser damage from Fox because it's borderline just unavoidable. For every game afterwards, though, including Ultimate, it lost that nimbleness, it lost the ability to cancel it, and as a result, it's just a much more committal move, and it doesn't do very much damage anymore either. That said, this still isn't a bad move. Fox players do use it, and it is nice to be able to force your opponent to approach, but that is kind of a little counter-synergistic with Fox's kit. He's a rushdown character, he's generally trying to approach you. The concept of a really defensive Fox who tries to just run away and shoot lasers at you the entire game before trapping you in combos when you try and pin him down, like, in theory that sounds cool, but among the top Foxes, you don't really tend to see that strategy used a whole lot, which could just mean that's not really the personality that tends to attract Fox players, but it could also just be that it's not really an optimal strategy. That's not a guarantee. We absolutely could see a Fox main who just abuses the hell out of lasers in the future, or there could be one already that I'm just not aware of, but regardless, I think essentially no one would argue that while the lasers aren't a bad move, they're kind of a pale imitation of what they used to be at their peak. I've picked Fox over Falco because while Falco's lasers are also in a lot worse place than they were at their peak, whether we're talking about Melee or Brawl, I think Falco's lasers just ended up in a much better spot overall in Ultimate. They're a far more annoying harassment tool and also see legitimate use in like edgeguard setups. Next up, and this is the only time I'm gonna do this, Fox's Shine. I really try to avoid character duplicates on my lists for the most part, but the choice between Laser and Shine was just so tight that I felt they both had to be on here. This was a good tool in Smash 64, but in Melee in particular, it was one of the most premium moves we have ever seen in a Smash game. Frame 1 startup as fast as it comes, and the ability to jump cancel out of it, which in Melee meant the ability to wave shine out of it. Also made it one of the best shield pressure tools in the game, an incredible edge guarding tool because of the angle it's sent at. Had invincibility on startup, chained into itself, chained into whatever else you want. Like, what do I need to say about this move? This is possibly the most famous move in Smash history. In Brawl, it lost essentially all of this, was just really heavily nerfed, but it did get to see some use as a really good stalling tool because Brawl was so floaty and you were allowed to spam it as much as you wanted. In Smash 4, it got even worse. Its stalling potential went down, it lost its intangibility, it got slower to start up, it sent out a way worse angle for niche edge guarding situations. Just a very bad look for a previously great move. And then Ultimate was kind of more of a trade-off. Like, they did give it back more combat use, they gave it back some of its speed, they gave it back some of its intangibility, they gave it a much better angle for edge guarding, but it did lose even more of that stalling property. You can no longer spam it off stage, and by this point that was arguably the main purpose of the move. It ended up as an okay move with some niche applications, and I'd say it's probably the worst of the three spacey reflectors now. The more kind of old school combo potential was taken over by Wolf, and then while Falco's also works very differently, even more differently than Fox's, it's arguably the best actual reflector move in the game, and again has some use in edge guarding situations and stuff like that. Continuing on with another iconic Melee character, Marth's dash attack. In Ultimate, this has a well-deserved reputation as one of the worst dash attacks in the game. It's really slow to start up, and it doesn't reach significantly further than, for example, his pivot cancel forward tilt. No significant reward for landing it, even the sweet spot isn't that strong, just an overall pretty underwhelming move. Similar stories in Brawl and Smash 4. Now, in those games, you didn't have the option to perform, for example, an F tilt out of a dash, so it had a little bit more utility as kind of your furthest reaching option in that kind of scenario, but still not anything to write home about by any means. The one time where Marth's dash attack has been good in Smash, it's been really good, and that was in Melee, where its hitbox popped opponents up rather than out, so you could actually use it as a really great combo starter and extender. This is an aspect of Melee's design that I really miss. Now, the game is full of jank that I think was rightfully rectified in later Smash games, but one element that I really do enjoy is the interesting hitbox trajectories. Melee Marth's dash attack was the satisfying scoop, whereas every other iteration of it has just been, oh, you smacked him with your sword, essentially the exact same thing he does with every other move. And the end result is something that's not only way more boring, but also way more ineffective. Okay, for number 8, Snake's down smash. Now, modern Snake's down smash is kind of a very typical double kick, and I wouldn't call it a bad move. In fact, because he's kind of a trap/setup character, I'd actually say it synergizes pretty well with a lot of the other stuff he's doing. Still a very standard, average ho-hum kind of down smash though, and works nothing like it did in Brawl, where he actually planted a landmine in the stage. So if we want to talk about a trap/setup character, my god, could Snake control a lot of stage back in those days. You could easily disable like half the stage for your opponent, you could make platforms very difficult to walk on, you could do all sorts of stuff. Now, his new down smash isn't bad, but I don't think there's any comparison between a really standard just hit you on both sides because I'm not sure where you're gonna be kind of thing, and a just completely dominant neutral tool. So his new down smash is now pretty straightforward, and while we're on the topic of straightforward down smashes, Peach. In most Smash games, this is again an extremely typical move that just covers both sides of her, does decent damage and knockback, kills at reasonable percentages, works exactly like how you'd expect most down smashes to work, and the major exception is in Melee. Animation-wise, the move doesn't really look that different, but the damage output on this thing is just like so insane that it kind of feels like it might have been an oversight. And if there's one Smash game where you really want to down smash that outputs this kind of damage, it's definitely in Melee because of crouch canceling. Holding down allows you to just tank a lot of hits in Melee, and hey, you're already holding down and your opponent is stuck in leg, so guess what? Down smash. In Brawl onwards, not only did they significantly reduce the impact of crouch canceling, but they also just straight up nerfed this move's damage output, so as a result, it's a perfectly average down smash. But in Melee, it definitely had its time to shine. Alright, reaching the end, I'm gonna throw an honorable mention in there that honestly could be on the list easily, but is a move that I think a lot of people kind of know about already, Bayonetta's Witch Time. Witch Time at its peak was the most broken counter ever introduced to the Smash series. There's no contest on that. It just stuck your opponent in place for so long and allowed you to get any kind of setup you could possibly ask for. Ultimate made a ton of changes to the move, but the most impactful were a significant reduction in the amount of time you were stuck in slowdown and also protection from knockback while you were in that slowdown. So she can't just fully charge a smash attack and kill you at super low percents anymore. It did gain some extra anti-projectile use, which is nice, but overall nowhere near enough to compensate for what it used to be. Okay, and our final entry in today's video, Meta Knight's Mock Tornado. For my money, Brawl Meta Knight's Mock Tornado is probably the single best move we've ever seen in a Smash game. It was extremely quick, extremely mobile, stayed out forever, did a ton of damage, and had very, very low ending lag, so trying to punish it was almost impossible. The hitbox was huge and very difficult to beat. Meta Knight was a character that, even if you took this away, would still undoubtedly be the best character in Brawl, but with Mock Tornado pushed him into probably the best character in Smash history status. This move was predictably nerfed into the ground in Smash 4. Now, it did kind of function more or less how it used to, except for a start, it actually had ending lag, so there was a risk to throwing it out. The hitbox was way smaller, it did less shield pressure. There were a ton of changes made to it, but I'd say the most impactful one by far was the landing leg, because it meant you couldn't just throw it out for free as a neutral tool. You actually had to have a plan to hit your opponent with it, and in that case, there were just other moves that Smash 4 Meta Knight would rather be hitting his opponent with, most notably dash attack. This didn't really leave it with much of a role to play in Smash 4, so in Ultimate, they kind of reworked it into a kill move. It now just does one really strong hit rather than dragging your opponent through the sky with it. The thing about that, though, is just he has other moves which more or less covered this already. Meta Knight is basically an air combo and edge guarding character at this point. If he's taking his opponent into the sky, he's going to use Shuttle Loop, not Mock Tornado. If he's doing a bridge combo instead, off the side rather than off the top, he can use Mock Tornado, but he's more likely going to just use neutral air or forward air. They do basically the same thing. If he's edge guarding, that's when you tend to see modern Meta Knights use Mock Tornado, and that's not like a bad use case, but it's still competing with neutral air and back air, both of which are really good edge guarding tools as well, and it leaves it in this very kind of niche specialized role, whereas the old Mock Tornado, there was nothing niche about it. That's one of the reasons I've gone with Mock Tornado. Now, it was the best move that's turned into a pretty mediocre move, so that alone will probably take its place over some other things, but also it's just really left without much of a role to play, whereas some of his other stuff, like Shuttle Loop in Brawl was an absolutely insane tool as well, but even in Smash 4 and Ultimate, it has a role to play. Same with his up air and down air. They're not the same kind of just ridiculous lightning speed anymore, but he still does regularly make use of both of them, whereas Mock Tornado, not only did it start from a higher position, but also as Meta Knight's design has kind of been streamlined over the years from a jack of all trades, master of all of them character to kind of a, more combo and edge guard focused specializer, Mock Tornado has been left behind. Whether it gets changed, whether his game plan gets changed, I don't know. But as a move that completely used to terrorize an entire generation of Smash and nowadays does no such thing, it feels very appropriate to end a list of the top 10 worst moves that used to be great with Mock Tornado, a move that inarguably did used to be great. Thanks for watching, everyone, and let me know what your list would look like, as well as any future lists you'd like to see. Likes and comments on a video are one of the main things YouTube uses to decide if it's worth sharing with more people, so if you think this video deserves it, much appreciated. Top 10 best moves that used to suck above, 100k AMA on my main channel below, and patrons, YouTube members, and Twitch subs get stuff like early videos and access to my Discord server. Later, people.